Yeah, I'm just curious. Outreach, we're interacting with folks in a different context than how you're interacting with them, being out in the field, if you will. And obviously you come across folks who are in different degrees of receptivity to the services you provide. Just based on your experience and your background, do you have any suggestions as we're out in the field, helping to kind of move people a little bit closer to a point where they might be able to better take advantage of the services that you provide than they feel presently comfortable doing?
I do. I have thoughts about that. You know, this is what you're doing is the first step of really probably one of my favorite parts of working with people in the community. You're doing outreach, and the next step is called engagement. And engagement is where it's at. Then they're hooked in and you're hooked in, and now there's a synergy happening, and now things can start to move. So you are the very crucial first step. The way I try to talk about the Murphy Center and some of these services is, which Bryce, you'll appreciate this, fits kind of with the Bridges Out of Poverty model, but we're a bridge. The Murphy Center's a bridge. And we're going to help you get where it is that you want to go. And so I'm going to be talking with people and trying to build a relationship, which is what you're starting out there. You're starting my access to having people I can build relationships with. And I'm trying to talk with them about the fact that some of those housing authority programs are on the other side of that bridge. So let's get those applications done and turned in and let that clock start ticking. And now we just have to figure out how to get from here until that comes through. So it gives us, we can sort of take it in steps and chunks, chunk it out, make it into manageable pieces that we can now start to problem solve about. Because I'm sleeping out and my sleeping bag is wet and I want an apartment. It's too hard. That's too big. That's too big for us, let alone for people who are out there, who are sleep deprived and not eating right and have untreated health issues and all kinds of behavioral health issues on top of that, that they're either trying to cope with or using to try to cope with what they've got going on. So you're not going to be able to feel out all the housing authority stuff, and we know that. I mean, that piece is kind of so you have background information, and you know then, when you talk to that guy, he's like, the housing authority takes forever, and there's all this complaining going on, you actually have some clear information from Jim about this is what it really looks like. It's not forever, it might be a year and a half, but if you're sleeping outside and you're wet and you're cold, it feels like forever. The SRO waiting list is gonna feel like forever. So we're gonna start by putting those pieces in place to kind of build a dam on this flood, you know? We're gonna stop it here. Okay, here's housing authority programs. Now we just have to contain this. And I think when I can do that with people, when I can get to have those conversations, we start to make progress. If your position can be, I know those housing authority programs that might take a little bit of waiting, but I know that the first application isn't that hard. It's kind of how you spin it. It's kind of how you present it. You know, so you have to validate their frustration. Absolutely. I think the two strongest words you can say when you're out there is, I understand. That is so huge, to just be heard. These guys want to be heard. And most of the time they're not. And when they do come in and they're working with us, we hear those stories. Part of what we're doing in our office is hearing them talk about how everywhere they go, it's paperwork. Even here, where we're trying to be so supportive. We have this huge intake with all these forms.
Yeah.
And
ours is shorter than that.
Yeah, and they're the feds, so go get it. But this is daunting. This is daunting. And if you're trying to do things under stress, think when you've had going to college, or a kid going to college, or a relative in the hospital, and there's all that paperwork, and you have to concentrate on the paperwork, but your heart is not in it, because it is elsewhere, because you are so stressed. Welcome. That's what they're dealing with. That's what they're dealing with. And so, this is hard. The housing authority's paperwork is hard. Human services paperwork is hard. It's all exhausting. I'll give you a good example. I helped somebody who is in housing, whose utilities were shut off, multi-generational family, from baby up to grandpa, everybody's staying in this one house, and now the power's off. So now they can't run the washer and dryer, their fridge is off. It was a nightmare. Okay, Salvation Army's utility assistance program out for the month today. Today is the 2nd of the month. Okay, we had that same thing happening with all the utility assistance programs for April, and we started working on this last week, so we were in April. And all the utility assistance programs in town were tapped out. There was nowhere to go by the last 2 weeks of the month for utility assistance. So we were working on this with United Way, and it's convoluted and it's a long process. It's a huge application. You have to have an agency representative, make the referral. You know, who's going to know how to do this? So they were overwhelmed. The family was here and they were just like, we don't know what to do, and we have a baby at home, and there's diapers, and we can't give the baby a bath. So we got it. It happened. We just found out today. We're so excited. This is the last night. We're trying to use a generator, pirating electricity from a neighbor's house. Okay, and it's been great, and they burned out the washer, I think, trying to run it up. It's been chaos. Okay, so it's coming tomorrow. The money's coming tomorrow. And so the guy was really relieved. He was so grateful. He was thankful that it helped him get through all this thicket. And I said, it'll be really good if maybe we can find a way to just write a quick thank you, because this is a huge sum of money that they're helping with. And he said, that would be great, but I can't write. So if I come in tomorrow, can you help me write a thank you? I said, absolutely, come on in. So, surprise, surprise. Didn't know I couldn't write. Now I do. Now we'll work on that. So what you're doing is trying to tell people that they can get through this. That there are people that will actually listen to them because you're actually listening to them. That's what matters. It matters that you hear them out. I have a question for you to consider as you're out there, because you're going to hear it over and over again. And that is, when people tell you that they just prefer to live outside, do you believe that? Do you believe that? Is it true? Is it possible? It's possible. It's possible. And yet, how many people have we talked to? This started there. Now it's I just like better out here. Yeah, I can do my own thing. I'm my own man. I'm free. I'm independent spirit. I have a different approach. You know, they say all that stuff to you, right? And they sometimes say it with a slur, or they sometimes say it with, some other odd behaviors mixed in, and you think you are definitely your own person. And that is like a true experience when you do an outreach. I mean, that's for real. And you're coming across behaviors you're not used to. Okay. And yet, I'll never forget the guy that we met who was a lifetime alcoholic, and we saw him sober, and he was in a facility, and he said, you know, I don't want to drink. I have no idea how to stop. I can't stop. He wanted to stop. He started drinking as a kid, and it killed him. That was the end. I mean, it did happen. People do die. What you are doing matters at that level in this community. It absolutely does. And people are saying positive things about your team. So know that. You're representing Homeless Gear, and Homeless Gear is a name in this community, this Murphy Center homeless people community. And they know that you care. So that's the most important thing that you do. So we'll give you information, and we'll kind of talk about how we walk people through that. But your listening matters. Today, somebody just said at the front desk, thanks for the smiles. Sometimes I just need some smiles. So how many people, you know, walk down the street and smile at our homeless folks that are out there? No, that doesn't really happen. So that's huge. That's huge. That said, is everyone safe? Is everyone in a good space? No, 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 no. So, you know, don't be like making super tight buddies with everybody that's out there, because that's not a good idea either, right? But I think it's really important that you are ambassadors, a nice word. You're ambassadors of hope. You are the first point of contact that there might be hope. What I have found is the people who say they prefer being out there are the ones who have failed so many times. They just can't stand any more failure. They just can't take it. It's too hard to keep trying to get your hopes up and then failing again. And so I try to do when I meet with people in here is kind of triage the needs and figure out, starting with where are you sleeping, how are you eating, what's up with your health, you know? Do you have anything we need to get to a doctor right now? And that can include physical health, that can include dental health. Dental, imagine being out there and you need a root canal. And that's happening, that's out there. And so you can't think straight, you can't be friendly and happy-go-lucky when your jaw is hurting like that. So people's behaviors are really impacted by their health a lot. You're gonna experience that. So we start with the really basic stuff, right there. And then I keep inviting people to come back, and I keep inviting people to come back. You're the first invitation. You're the first invitation to come to us. That's the most important thing you're gonna do. So, for housing, acknowledge, yeah, there's a process, yeah, it takes time. You need to validate what they're saying. Because I was talking with a client today, he was born in Mexico, and so he has a thick accent. And we were talking about a movie line which really resonated for him, which was, just because I speak with an accent doesn't mean I think with an accent. You know? It's a great line. And I think that that holds true on a lot of our clients' behaviors. Like, just because they do things in this different way does not mean they're stupid. Because they've been surviving out there. And I challenge any of you to survive as well, as long as they have. So they are smart. They're very smart, but they might be undereducated, and they might be really ill, and they might be mentally ill and have it untreated. And if your brain was not working the way you need it to work, and you're trying to access all these programs, how would you do that? So I think your compassion and your friendliness is what's huge about this. So empathize with the programs. When they come in here, I grabbed one of these health resources. There you go. Okay. You've got this, the little grid resource. This is how I plan with people. It's a week. It just says Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. There aren't even dates on here. I just pull one of these out and I just put some dates on the top, and we kind of maybe circle one thing a day if it's applicable. So if we're needing to work on whether or not they want to apply for Social Security benefits, I'm going to pick one thing on here, I'm going to circle it, and that's Thursday's task. And that's it. One thing. Because they are completely overwhelmed. So when you want to know how the Murphy Center operates, they dig through all that paperwork, they do the best they can, they come in, and they just vent what's going on. That's the first thing. And they need to do that. And we let them. And it takes a little bit of time. And that's okay, because that first meeting is really important for establishing any kind of bond. So when they say, yeah, I met those outreach people, and they said to come on in here, you helped make that happen. That they had a place where they could come in and they could have that conversation. So after they've done that, I try to summarize it. And sometimes that can be helpful if you use that technique. You don't have to say, so what I'm hearing you say is, you don't have to go all therapist, okay? But you can just say, you know, sounds like you really want to get going on some of this housing stuff. And they say, yeah, but it's going to take a really long time. Yeah, well, you might as well, what the phrase I use is, you might as well get that clock ticking. Because the time's going to go by anyway. It might as well go by with you on the waiting list. And then that's done, and you can move on to other things. So it's kind of how you present it. But if you can listen to this whole alphabet soup of what they've told you that their interests are, or their needs are, and you can kind of see a theme, saying, you know, maybe what you want to do is just get in and talk to somebody about getting some showers and a locker, and just getting some basic things taken care of, and they can talk with you about the pros and cons of getting into the shelter or trying to apply for housing. So kind of, you meet them where they're at and summarize, just wrap it back up. And also that can help end a conversation that won't end, and you're trying to get on, right? And you're like, we have 5 more places that we need to stop. Right, so the summarizing helps also. And the summarizing helps people feel heard. So if you can do that, and they'll say, yeah, exactly, that's what you're going for, that's pay dirt. If you get exactly, you did well. Okay, that was good stuff. So try that.
Yeah, so I've been out there and I've referred people to the Murphy Center, but to me it's just like a box, right?
Right.
We have like names, like, hey, you know, talk to Barb, or, you know, if you get in there, maybe you should talk to, I don't know, who it is.
Well, we
So
have
like a list of names and some name dropping, because I think that when they come in, they said, yeah, you know,
Yeah.
talking to the homeless here guys, they said I should talk to you versus instead of the box. You know, instead
Well,
of the box, you walk in. I mean, that
yeah.
at least gives them, you know, an introduction, right, a hook to, if they,
Right.
a lot of people I've talked to say, oh yeah, no, you know, they're comfortable with it, but there've been a couple that,
Mhm.
not many, but a few, and I think if we just had like
If
some
they,
names.
I agree, if they have come in and their experience with case management has been, you know, I didn't really get a lot out of it, right? Because who knows, maybe they come in and they were sick, maybe they came in and they had a long wait, maybe they came in and they're one of our folks who are mentally ill and they aren't on meds, and I mean, there can be 100 different reasons. Maybe we did a bad job that day, I don't know, but I'm the lead, and so if our case management is suffering, send them to me. Absolutely. Try it again, and this time tell them you want to talk to Barbara. And that's fine. That's fine. Just try it again. And tell them you want to talk to me. And, because engagement's my favorite part. So,
But if they haven't come out, do you have like a list, do you have a list of,
we know who their case manager is. So even
now what
if
they don't have a case,
Yeah,
they're just
if they're
fresh.
brand new,
Yeah, they're brand new.
then they can get any one of a number of case managers.
yeah, so, but I mean, do we have like, do you have a list of names? we can
That would be
get?
good.
That's
and it's
something we
I
could
don't need the
probably-
last names, right? I mean, I think,
No,
yeah,
no,
hey,
it's
go
fine.
talk to Joe, you know, I mean,
Yeah.
there's a few guys, you can talk to Joe, just, that way they feel like, oh, I'm gonna go meet a person.
Right.
Right, that's what I'm saying, versus,
Right.
I'm gonna go to this building, and
Right.
I'm gonna walk in, I'm gonna feel completely out of sorts.
Yeah.
Well, and you can always, you know, you can toss them our names, because, I mean, our staff changes every day,
Yeah.
Yeah.
you know,
Okay.
and frankly, and once the art show's done, shameless plug for the art show. Come on Friday, first Friday art walk, 6 to 9 in the Museum of Art, and you can see I'm doing a show that's about what's next door to liquor stores in poverty neighborhoods. I did not do Fort Collins, I went to Denver, so it's very approachable up here. It's not gonna bother anybody's neighborhood up here, but it's a great conversation starter, and a whole bunch of the clients are gonna come to it. So we're gonna just
Where is that
kind
at?
of take a look at it. The Museum of Art is at
Yeah, I know it is.
211 South College.
Yeah.
Okay, shameless plug. So, but typically, Zach is very busy doing what Zach does well, which is getting everyone to come together and care about our people and talk well. And I'm horrible politically, as you can see. And so we keep me at home, because I can't go out. And so I'm generally here Monday through Friday. And so, you know, you can refer him to Zach, but probably he's not gonna be here, but I will.
Yeah.
I'll be here.
Okay.
And, you know, and I kind of, if we've got people who have pretty sensitive needs, I'm going to end up being the one who works with them anyway. So,
And we can also see about, you know, getting a list and having it in the homeless gear resource book so that you can, you know, you can refer to that. We'll update it as our staff changes and everything as well.
Yeah.
That does make a big difference. I mean, you know, for anybody, it's just much more comfortable, you know, when you know what to expect.
It's kind of like going to the doctor's office.
Yeah.
You just show up to the medical center of, you know,
right.
Myrtle Street or whatever, like,
Right.
well, okay, is there a doctor here that does this? I don't even know.
Yeah.
Right.
Versus someone said, hey, have you seen Dr. Jones? I think he could, and you're like, hey, somebody told me to come see Dr. Oh yeah, we got Dr. How about when you see this up? At least it, you know.
Right,
Yeah.
right. So yes, we have the Spanish-speaking man. We have a younger man. We have 2 women case managers. We have
Spanish-speaking front desk staff.
Spanish-speaking front desk staff. We have a case manager who's actually personally in recovery and uses that. So, I mean, we, you know, there's a variety, and I think, you know, just having some names, some faces. I mean, you know, that might be handy.
I mean, I agree completely. Anything you can do to make it more comfortable, you know, accurate directions, you know, any of those kind of things make a big difference. I mean, Jim was talking about the meeting we were in this morning, and I had a very nice printed off map and everything, and I was driving over there, and the directions were accurate. But it's still, I felt like I was going the wrong way, and it's out in the middle of nowhere, and, you know, I was getting anxious about, am I in the wrong place and everything? And I was going to be a couple minutes late to a meeting where I knew everybody in the place, and it still was causing anxiety for me, being somebody who, has mental health issues, and, they weren't really sure about seeking services in the first place, and now they're being asked to walk into a really busy building, and, if we could do anything to make that a more comfortable invitation to them, I mean, that really can make all the difference in the world. And Barb was talking about how you guys really are, the ones that are kind of the ambassadors of hope and everything, and, not to freak you out at all or anything, but honestly, you can do as much damage as good out on the street. Honestly, if you're giving people inaccurate information, like she said, the people who say that they want to be on the street, that they prefer to be on the street, it's because they've failed so many times. Well, if you give them, the wrong address for an office, or you give them, the wrong name, or, you tell them, yeah, you go to the housing authority and they'll be able to get you housing in a couple of weeks. Well, when that doesn't happen, what little bit of hope they had is gone, and they're not going to try again. That was their one chance. So, you really have to make sure that you're being, honest with folks, and like Barb said, acknowledging, because there are times where you kind of want to massage the truth because you feel like, well, I don't want to just depress this person and, tell them that there's going to be a 15-month wait list. Won't it feel better for me if I can tell them, yeah, there's this great place that'll get you housing, and leave it at that? Well, that feels great for you, but that's going to be absolutely horrific for that person. So you really do have to be, and obviously I was joking earlier about saying lie to people and tell them that we're great here at the Murphy Center.
No, that part's true. Lie about that.
Only tell them that if you really think the agency is great. And if you don't, if you have some concerns about the agency, chances are they've heard it from 40 or 50 other people on the street already. So it's not anything new to them. Be honest about it. Just say, yeah, that agency can be a little bit difficult to work with at times, but in the long run, they're doing some really good things, and I think that they can help you out. If you tough it out with them, it'll in the long run be a good thing. And that gives them reasonable expectations. I mean, we talk about that all the time here at the Murphy Center. If we tell somebody that they're going to wait 15 minutes, and then they have to wait 2 hours, they get angry. If we tell them they have to wait 2 hours, and they have to wait 2 hours, they're okay with that. If we tell them they have to wait 2 hours and they wait an hour and a half, they're happy. So, it really is kind of an expectations game that you have to play with folks, and you don't want to set them up to lose hope, because, that really is what you guys are doing is building those relationships, building that hope, and encouraging them to access services like this. So, being honest with them, validating what they're feeling, and then, encouraging them anyway, admitting there's going to be some hurdles and everything, but that's part of what we're here to do. And then also, like Barb said, just listening to them. A lot of times the folks out on the street, even though they may be hanging around in groups, they don't get to have real conversations. You can't talk to somebody else on the street about how difficult and depressing it is for you to be homeless, because they're homeless too. They don't want to hear it. So sometimes, even though they may be having really superficial conversations out on the street, they haven't had a conversation with somebody who wants to hear about their difficult life and sympathizes with them in years, if ever. And you can really be that person for them to say, wow, that sounds horrible. It must be really tough every day having to deal with that. And that is a huge weight off of their shoulders, just to be able to tell somebody that.
Can I offer a response to Bryce's question about, and it's got to do with people's readiness to act. There's a whole body of knowledge, and I think I've talked to Ken about that, about possibly coming back and talking about that, but there's a whole body of knowledge about how people, all of us, are ready to make change and actually act on something. And recognizing, first of all, that, gee, maybe I have some issues I got to do something about. And there's like a motivational, they've kind of conceptualized this into sort of a motivational wheel, where at first you say, I don't really have a problem. I got no problem. My problem is that you're telling me I got a problem. And the second sort of component is, I'm thinking I might have a problem with being homeless, for example, or my mental health issue, or maybe a substance abuse issue, or, you know, that extra shoulder that's growing off of my shoulder, you know, I mean, that kind of stuff. And then at some point, there's a decision point. Think about the last thing you wanted to change, okay, in your own life. We're all struggling with these things in different areas of our life. When you finally get to that place where you're going to take an action and make a decision about it, and then finally act on it, and then finally get to the point where you're actually doing it so often that it becomes a new habit. And I think that when you're on the streets, you are probably seeing a lot of folks who've got a lot of ambivalence about even coming to the Murphy Center. And I think that oftentimes, I think it's a little bit about what Zach and Barbara are talking about in terms of what is the strategy for folks that are very ambivalent and even saying, I don't think I got a problem. There are specific strategies to respond to folks at that level. So first of all, to understand where they're at on this motivational wheel is really super important. Number two, your response is differential relative to their level of readiness to change, okay? So you're not going to say to somebody who says, well, I don't really got a problem, I'm fine on the streets. You're not going to say, you know, I think you got a problem because, geez, you know, you're all wet. And, and so you got to come to the Murphy Center and get action going, you know, start working on this stuff. If they're not ready, they're not ready. And your intervention on, if it's mismatching where they're really ready to go, you're creating resistance. And what happens is, you know, folks push back. And they're sort of going, well, wait a minute, there's a lot of judgments going on here. I don't dig you. You know, you're not really helping me. You're not really where I'm at. And I think what Barb and Zach intuitively are saying is, where is the appropriate intervention relative to where they're ready to move? And you don't want to get ahead of them. You don't want to suggest more than they're really capable of doing at the time and where they're really motivated, ready to go. And I think a lot of us are sort of saying, geez, you know, I think you ought to do action, and so let's convince you that action's the thing. And you're ahead of folks. And I would say many of the folks on the streets that I've been working with over the years are really either saying, I'm not really sure I have a problem, or I might have a problem I'm not sure about. And the response to that is not, well, I think I got some great ideas for you to kind of take it to the fore. What I think these two folks have been saying for the last while is the appropriate strategy is to create a relationship, a caring, concerned, encouraging relationship, first and foremost. Building rapport, offering hope. Homeless Gear is trying to do. It was sandwiches, it was soda, it was any kind of contact. It was eventually being able to just sit, and not staring at him, but sitting on the park bench next to him. Here's the sandwich you like. And this went on and on and on. I mean, there was no movement off the streets beyond this relationship being built for a long time. We're talking about folks that you are working with that are at that level. And I think your expectations need to be like, you know, in line with the fact that you may not have people come to the Murphy Center. You may not want to talk to the Housing Authority for quite a time, but what you're doing is what Barb's saying about being able to be like that first contact at their level, building rapport, providing basic services to them on the street. And that may be it for a year. That may be it for 2 years. And are you doing anything? Yeah, you're doing a huge amount right there. So anyway, and we can talk more about that at some other time.
Right.
Rick, if you want to come back, and we can talk about the motivational wheel and some of the strategies and so forth. But anyway, so I just want to reiterate that oftentimes you're not going to get folks coming in.
Well, and I can tell you, even when they do come in, our philosophy is, again, meet them where they're at, let them determine what their goals are. If we start trying to determine for them, oh, okay, you're homeless, you need housing. Well, that may not be their immediate goal. Their immediate goal may be to reconnect with their children or whatever it might be. You have to meet them where they're at and let them work on those goals. And sometimes they don't want to work on anything. They want a shower and they want laundry, and that's okay. We'll let them come in and do shower and laundry and everything and take it slow with them. Some of our greatest successes have been individuals that we really did almost nothing for them, concrete, for a really long time. We had one gentleman who was really mentally ill, and it basically sat in that back corner, frankly being very smelly for about a year or so, and then finally started opening up with us and finally started talking to us. And then actually, it was just like the dam opened, and then the next thing we knew, he's meeting with our mental health specialist, and then after that, he's on medications, and then a couple months after that, he's in the SRO, and he's doing absolutely amazing. We're like, well, what happened? And it was because we were willing to take that time. If we had gone up to him and day one had said, it really seems like you need some mental health treatment, let's introduce you to our mental health worker,
Right.
he never would have come back to the building again.
How
So,
about a shower?
Yeah.
Yeah.
like, clearly that was our goal, was to get him a shower, but that wasn't his goal, so, and that's fine. So yeah, we talk a little bit about the resources and everything, and ultimately, you guys don't have to memorize all the resources. I mean,
That's too much.
that's our responsibility, and even we aren't able to do that. But, by you guys having a little bit better understanding of the resources, then obviously that helps it when you're having those conversations with folks.